Hello and welcome back to Bochos Brother. Here we are again, and we have reached 500 views on our Castinella video, which means it is time for MORENCIA. Now, what is MORENCIA? Let's take a look at the map here. This is Grimm Hollow, Dungeons and Dragons 5e. The world is Etharis. This is the continent of Etharis. You can see it here. And if you were to travel south and come to the Charnault Kingdom here and come down here, this is where I'd place Saltmarsh, the Shaded Haven. So I'd put Saltmarsh just across here from MORENCIA, between these two rivers. And over here you have Toletum and Castinella. And there is the island of MORENCIA. It is shrouded in fog and mist. This is not natural, it's a magical fog and mist which keeps the island protected, as it's a valuable asset. The kingdom of Castinella has tried many a time to take over the island and recently failed. They did they sent the whole armada out there, and fortunately because of the shaman from the elves in Charnault, the grand shaman Etherion put the mist and fog, or rather he tuned into the spirits or whatever's causing that mist and fog, and was able to really whoosh it up and hide the Charnault navy, their many ships, so they could sneak in behind the Castinellan armada and pretty much wiped them out. It was a very close battle. The Admiral Endoria Onaglie led the fleet that took on the Castinellan fleet, losing his eye, I suppose it's his right eye, taking on the flagship in the end. It is an island where the Bankers Guild is held, kind of like the Gold, I believe it was called the Gold Company in Game of Thrones. So if you want to get a loan, anything like that, MORENCIA is the place you're going to want to go to. The Navigators Guild is the second key element to this island. So firstly, you have the Bankers Guild, then you have the Navigators Guild, which has shipwrights and all kinds of sailors and what have you. And they're very important because not only is there this unnatural mist and fog that surrounds the island, there are also large coral reefs surrounding the island, as well as sandbars which shift and move. And this causes it to be impossible to navigate the maze into the island without wrecking your ship and being stranded and starving or sinking to the bottom of the sea. So, those are some things to think about when you travel south as a dungeon master. Maybe if you're a player, you might know about these things, but you'd have to roll some history checks. The third element of this island is called the Supreme Council. Doge Lorenzo Flavenici of the Supreme Council, he resides there, but he's kind of running into trouble as of late due to several problems that are coming about here on this island. Now, this is no normal island like you think, with palm trees, things like that, Pirates of the Caribbean, although it does support this kind of program. This Pirates, Black Flags is another great program that I would think would go well to understand the environment. But it's more like Venice in that there's a lot of canals. There are people going by on gondolas. There are people, you can get gondolas to get around the city. There aren't any like conventional roads with horses and carriages. Rather, there are sidewalks, bridges, and gondolas going under the bridges. And you have on the main channel, you have the most magnificent bridge of all. It's like this architecture built from 60, 70, 80 years ago, this massive bridge, which is called the Water Strider Bridge, because it was originally, it fits probably about 4 carriages wide, but it was adjusted to have extending legs, so a bridge coming down this way, a bridge coming down this way, a bridge going that way, and a bridge going that way. So it looks kind of like this water strider over the water, and each one of these bridges leads to a different kind of little tiny island isolated location in the city. Then you probably have some cobblestone streets, piratey alleyways, little shops, brass and bronze towers that have turned green from the rain and the sea salt, seagulls flying over, salty mists flying by. And in the evening, on moonless nights, beware the dead of the moonless night. On moonless nights, people go missing, and they show up in not such a good state. They are mutilated. They have been sacrificed in a cult style fashion. So you'll want to think about what could those things be. What could have done this, right? Do we have, are you going to use kind of Avernus, that it's a devil cult? Are you going to use more of a Cthulhu style kind of creatures from the sea? Maybe Laneshi, which are one of the races there. There's some great monsters coming out in the Monster Grimoire, as well as in the Nightfell Monster Grimoire. The Lunar Predator would be a good option there. A Strego, a Majara. So look around DMs specifically and try to think what could be behind these Jack the Ripper style killings that have been happening on the moonless night. They have two festivals. So in the summer they have the Black Carnival, which is like a Mardi Gras, partying, music, and in recent years things have been getting out of hand. There's been debauchery, even torture for loads of money. People are offering to be tortured and so on. So yeah, rated R on your game session here as you're going to the Black Carnival. It could be an event you encounter if your party comes to this island around this summer season. And some people think that, well, what I think, they don't give a lot of detail here in the book, but they have a disease which is kind of like a pandemic called the 7 Shades of Citrine. And Citrine is kind of like this goddess, demon of debauchery and lust and all of these things. And if you get this disease, ecstasy or something, you're just everybody you meet, you become charmed by them, and you're trying to get physical, and it leads to a whole array of problems. It's in the book, in this one, in the Grimm Hollow guide. So I think Citrine, who, if you are aware of Warhammers, I think it's Slanesh, would give you a good idea of who that is. That could be one of the people who's behind this whole Dead of the Moonless Night. But up to you. If you're there in the winter, they have what's known as the White Carnival. And they do get a little bit of snow. So imagine Venice covered by snow, light layer. Fascinating time to arrive there. Clean up the city. They're cleaning it in terms of trash and stuff, but they're also cleaning it in terms of anybody who's not a citizen of the city. They want them out. They want only citizens to live in the city, and everybody else is there on trade for a limited time. And so you would have to wear a mask. It is kind of like this white mask. I'm thinking like Eyes Wide Shut kind of thing, dong, dong, white masks. And if you can't get a hold of one of those masks, the city guard will capture you and send you off on a skiff, and you're out of there. So they're very strict about who comes and goes to the city. If you show up on a trading ship in a big barge, you will have a 40-day quarantine in kind of this lagoon area. And once you pass that quarantine time, then you can go in and make your trade and all that, and then you can leave. So exciting things to take into consideration as your party travels to MORENCIA. It also offers a good opportunity to dig into some backgrounds. There was a good 20 or 30 pages between these two books on backgrounds you can choose. So if you wanted a character that came from MORENCIA, a wide variety of race choices whereas most of the rest of Etharis is human mostly, or strictly dwarf or strictly elven. This mixing pot of a lot of races. So you have Ogrish, you could have Laneshi, things like that coming up from the water. These are the Laneshi. These are the Ogrish. You could have Downcast character there. You could have a disembodied characters there. Something small that would be a lot of fun is the Weshel kind. These little guys, you know, they're like little wooden doll people. And halflings would work, so all different colors and all different sorts of people living in Morencia. Let's see these backgrounds you could, because there's a Carpenters Guild there and shipwrights. So obviously you could be a sailor, a dock worker, a sea gatherer, a noble. You could be part of this Supreme Council as a noble, an envoy, a courtier. You could be somebody there who's appraising goods and doing business, market merchant, something like that. You could be a bounty hunter there who's there capturing illegal people who are trying to stay past their limited time. You could be a doctor. You could be the physician there. Of course, you could be a charlatan, cutthroat, or burglar as well. And from these Grimm Hollow books, you get to have this development in that background, a 4-stage development. So you could start out as a lowly dock worker and end up running the show there in Morencia. They are a city with a lot of money, but the Supreme Council has given up seats to those who could pay. So the highest bidder can get a seat on the Supreme Council. And so a lot of the bankers have bought into the Supreme Council, as well as the Augustine Trading Company, who are kind of shady and they don't have an alliance really with any land. They just want to line their own pockets. And there's even rumors that they are linked there with Castinella to try to get a foothold and undermine Morencia. So that's kind of one of the problems that's going on. There's 6 problems going on in Morencia. Those would be the mists and the sandbars that are shifting. We have the ritualistic, gruesome murders on the moonless nights. We have the corruption amongst the Bankers Guild with Castinella, the Augustine Trading Company, and the Supreme Council. We have that they're selling out these seats on the Supreme Council to the highest bidders. We have potentially this disease of the 7 shades of Citrine that's spreading throughout the city, with everybody being lustful and out of control, especially if you arrive there for the Black Carnival in summer. And finally, you have the deportation of non-Morencias. So it's kind of this beautiful, glossy city on the outside, but rotten at the core. And anything else to cover? Guilds, the Navigators Guild and the Carpenters Guild. Those are kind of and the Bankers Guild. Those are the ones that really stand out strong. They've also got a kind of this detective who's on the case. This guy named Witch Hunter Vedemir Kalstal. And he's a famous detective who captured and he helped lead to the execution of these 3 sisters. It was like this Hague coven in the Burak Empire. And so now they've hired him to look into what is going on with this dead of the moonless night situation. Another famous person that you might run into is Master Collis, otherwise known as the Blazing Brain, currently the kind of head honcho of the Bankers Guild, as well as tied into the Augustine Trading Company. So this guy might very well be the one who's is the mastermind behind the corruption and the taking over of the Supreme Council. So again, I don't know, is it from the Avernus, from the Hells this is happening? Is it alien-like from the deep sea? Are there Laneshi or Sahagwin involved? That's up for you to decide. Get your Pirates of the Caribbean in there, get your Black Sails in there, and have some pirate adventures. this would be a great book to use here. If you see it, it's the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. This was the collector's edition cover, and this provides with a whole, slew of things you can be going between Saltmarsh on the land and to the islands. This is what a Sahagwin looks like here, if you haven't seen one on the cover. So one other thing, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. You could also use from here the ideas from this island called, what's it called? Dark Toe Isle. Dark Toe Isle from the Critical Role world. Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. You can get some really good ideas for piratey kinds of things that would be happening there. So between these two books and your own imagination, and with this good background, I think you're pretty well set to travel to Morencia. And this, my friends, concludes our Lore of the Land compilation. So thanks for watching. If you haven't seen any of the other ones, be sure to check them out, and I will catch you next time.